Hello again. The drug that I will talk about in this video is called chlorpromazine, and the way it works is by blocking dopamine 2 receptors that are located in the ventral tegmental area in the midbrain. So I have here two dopamine pathways that are related to the symptoms of schizophrenia. One of the pathways is called the mesolimbic pathway because the neurons that are located in the ventral tegmental area, right here, this is the brainstem, this is the pons, the medulla oblongata, and here we have the nuclei in the ventral tegmental area of dopaminergic neurons, and they send their actions to the limbic system, and the nucleus accumbens is one of the subdivisions or substructures of the limbic system. So this is one of the pathways that is going to be involved in the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. One of the positive symptoms are hallucinations. For example, you see people that are really not there, or you hear sounds that are not produced by real people, or you think that somebody touched you that it really didn't happen. So these are hallucination delusions, or persecutory delusions, or grandiose delusions. Those are for example, you think that somebody's going after you, so you have persecution of the leading of persecution and grandiose, etc. So you also have bizarre behavior like repetitive stereotypes, and you have incoherence and talk illogically with a pattern that is without a logical sequence. The other dopaminergic system that schizophrenia is believed to be involved in is called the mesocortical pathway, and the nuclei is also in the ventral tegmental area right there, and they send their actions to the cortex. That's why it's called meso from mesencephalon, which is the midbrain, and cortical to the cortex. So this is the other pathway of the dopaminergic neurons that is affected. Scientists believe that is involved in schizophrenia, and they have the negative and cognitive symptoms, which are involve affective flattening. For example, people don't have a facial expression, they are like a flat expression, they have poor eye contact, or they are unresponsive affection, in which you can talk to them about something that is important to them, they don't even react to emotionally to it. They have social inattentiveness, which they can be in a group and they don't react to the social cues, and etc. So as we know, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is released to the synaptic cleft and binds to postsynaptic receptors. And here we can see this is a chart in this side with no drug, which I made for you to help you understand. And this is the presynaptic terminal, and this would be the postsynaptic neuron. And these little black dots would be the dopamine molecules or dopamine neurotransmitters that are trying to bind, that are releasing to the synaptic cleft, and they are trying to bind to the postsynaptic D2 dopamine receptors. And each of these little things are D2 receptors for dopamine, and the dots, the black dots, are binding to these receptors in a person who has no drug. When we introduce chlorpromazine, which is an antipsychotic drug, they bind into these D2 dopaminergic receptors right here, and they block the action of the dopamine receptors. They block the dopamine action. So that's why we call it an antagonist. So chlorpromazine would be an antagonist. So it is believed that schizophrenia is the result of an overactivity of dopamine neurons. So too much dopamine in the brain produces psychosis and produces all the symptoms of schizophrenia. So chlorpromazine is a drug that it was marketed in 1956 to help people suffering from schizophrenia to reduce their symptoms. And it does, because chlorpromazine binds to the metabotropic dopamine 2 receptor that I just showed you right here in this side. So the red is is for the chlorpromazine molecules that are binding into the metabotropic dopamine 2 receptors, and they are located in the postsynaptic membrane. If dopamine 2 receptor is blocked by chlorpromazine, like you saw right here, it's blocking the dopamine action, and the action is inhibited as a result. For this reason, we said that chlorpromazine is an antagonist for the dopamine D2 receptors. So doses of chlorpromazine can range from 0.5 milligram, 0.5 milligram to even 1,000 milligram per day, or even 2,000 milligram per day. It all depends on the patient, the severity of the symptoms, and the case. It depends on individual a range of diseases or other type of problem that the patient may have. So, and it can be administered via oral administration, which is in tablets, or it can be injected for severe cases, because injection, this is the form of administration that will reach the brain faster. So chlorpromazine will reduce the symptoms of schizophrenia because it will inhibit the overactivity of dopaminergic neurons. I hope I was able to explain how chlorpromazine helps people suffering from schizophrenia, and till next time, thank you.